At nearly some point in everybody's life, they have experienced the phenomenon known as déjà vu. Well, when it comes to Detroit Lions fans, there seems to be a phenomenon where people are thinking that the 2023 Lions are getting set to be the 2016 Lions. Is this the case? We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned. We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10-5, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions. And
we are driven by Detroit.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in. But before we dive in, I just want to do this really quickly. Again, for those that are coming back to my show, I just want to say thank you all for coming back. Thank you all for your view, your support, and your patronage. Thank you all for everything you do. It absolutely means the world to me. And to those that are tuning into my show for the very first time, I just want to say thank you all for giving my show a shot. Thank you all for coming in, and I hope you all enjoy the content. But likewise, I also hope to gain your subscription if I've earned and deserved it. I hope you enjoy the content. And to everybody, I just want to say God bless. I hope you're having a great day. And with that, let's get into the show. So here's the thing, folks. Right now, there is a literal bevy of stuff that is going on inside of the Lions community. Like, people are just, it's like fireworks in the Lions community right now. You've got people that are going from one side of the spectrum to the other. People are going up and down. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. And granted, that's all because of what happened in this game against the Chicago Bears. But like I released in yesterday's episode, you've got people that are saying, oh, get rid of Jared Goff, start Hendon Hooker. I'll put the link to that episode back up at the top. You've got people that are just absolutely going all over the place because of what has happened. And people are being, how should I say this without it being too whatever? They're being rather extreme, in my opinion. But one thing that I've heard that I figured I'd talk about is this idea that in some people's opinion, the 2023 Lions are setting themselves up to be a reversion, if you will, of the 2016 Lions. Because of the fact that the 2016 Lions, they started and got all the way up to 9-4 in that season, and then they sputtered out and finished 9-7, barely getting into the playoffs, and then were a one and done in the playoffs, losing in the wild card round. That is in essence the same kind of thought process that some Lions fans are starting to put out on social media that, oh, the Lions are 9-4, it looks like they're struggling, it looks like we're getting set up for this exact same repeat of history that happened in 2016. Hence the terminology of déjà vu. Now, the whole point of today's episode is to simply take a look at that and be like, okay, is there some merit to this thought process? Is there some merit to this idea? So, let's kind of take a look at everything here really quickly and go from there. So, when we take a look at 2016, I decided to go back. I decided to take a look at the stats, take a look at the schedule, take a look at anything I could get so that way I could try and come up with a comparative analysis here. When we go back to 2016, first and foremost, we have to keep at least one thing in perspective here. In that season, there's less games that's being played because there was one less game. But the Lions in 2016 actually started the season off rather slow. They started the season off 1-3 and then played their way up to 9-4. So they actually started off slow, really got hot, and then they slowed down immensely again because they went to 1-3, got to 9-4, and then they finished the year 9-7, stumbling their way, as some people would say, into the playoffs, and then lost to the Seahawks in the wild card round 26-6. Now, like I'm stating, some Lions fans are thinking that, in their opinion, the 2023 Lions are similar to what's going on from what happened in 2016. The problem with that is that first and foremost, just based on how the team started, that's already a complete fallacy. One, we started the year 5-1 versus how the Lions back in 2016 started 1-3. So already there's a vast difference in how the team started. But that's not going to be the whole basis of my conversation today. Because we have to understand something here. In order to get a very clear understanding, in order to get a very clear concept of what is going on here, we have to take a look at a lot more information to understand if this is an overreaction or if it's actually something that's valid. So let's keep some things in perspective here. I decided to take a look at the offenses and the defenses for both of those teams to kind of, again, get a much clearer picture here. When we take a look at 2016, I'm going to put the stats up on the screen. What you're going to see is that the offense in 2016 realistically was able to put up a lot of passing yards, which, let's understand something here, for a Matthew Stafford-led team at that time, that's not very uncommon. Matthew Stafford was throwing the ball all over the place because that was our offense. It was Stafford-led, Stafford-produced in essence. But take a look at this. We couldn't run the ball worth a damn. Our rushing average, our rushing first downs, and our rushing yards in total were all pretty much near the bottom of the league. We were one of the most heavily penalized teams on offense. And on top of that, we weren't exactly the greatest in the red zone, but we weren't the worst either. But the point is, pretty much what our offense was in 2016 was a passing offense. That was about all we could do. When you take a look at the stats that I just presented from 2016, and then you do the reversal, you take a look at the flip side of it, and you take a look at 2023, it's a complete difference. It's an absolute complete difference. It's much more efficient. It's much more balanced. First and foremost, we're a top 10 scoring offense this year. We're a top 5 yard producing offense. We're tied third in terms of yards per play. We're a top 10 passing offense, top 10 rushing offense. We still have one of the best scoring drive percentages, and we're not that far out of the top 10 for red zone percentage. So what you're already seeing is a vast difference in terms of the Lions' ability to be a much more balanced, efficient, explosive offense in 2023 versus what we saw in 2016. Now, why is that the case? Well, pretty plainly obvious is this. One, the talent that the Lions have in 2023 is vastly better than what we had in 2016, because let's be fair and honest here. Number one, we have more weapons on the overall offense altogether. If you go back to 2016, if I recall correctly, that might have been when we started going to Golden Tate and all that nonsense. We had already kind of moved off of Calvin Johnson. So at that point, the offense was kind of going through a little bit of a transformation right there. But we still hadn't figured out the running game. The offensive line was still not figured out either. It was pretty much Matthew Stafford just throwing the ball over everybody. When you take a look at our current offense, you've got a very balanced attack that includes Jared Goff, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you've got J-Mo, Sam Laporta. You've just got a much more comprehensive, much more complete offensive unit that has the ability to be balanced, explosive, and efficient, whereas the offense that the Lions had in 2016 was just pretty much an aerial attack. That's all it was. So that right there already shows a massive difference between how these two teams are interacting when they're actually on the field. But again, that's just half of the consideration that we have to go through here. The next thing we have to take a look at is the offenses. Not the offenses, we just did that. We need to take a look at the defenses. Let's go back to 2016's defense and see what that looks like. Again, putting the stats up on the screen. If you take a look at the defense in 2013, again, it's an okay points giving up defense. Not too bad in terms of yards. It's just outside of being average. But again, not a whole lot of things to look at that's really all that good. Again, we're giving up a lot of first downs. The passing defense isn't that good. The rush defense is even worse. Again, there's just not a whole lot of things that we can realistically look at and see that are good. We're bad in the red zone. We're not getting a whole lot of turnovers. We're giving up points on scoring drives, and we're not getting after the quarterback in sacks. Again, this is a defense in 2016 that is a very bad unit overall. It's not really doing a lot of anything good. But again, that's 2016. What about 2023? Again, if you've been on my channel before, you already know that I have not been a very good, how should I say it? Not even very good. I have not been a very heavy proponent of this defense. In fact, I usually am very scornful. I'm usually very critical of the defense. But again, if you take a look at the defense from 2023, again, you're going to see much of the same problems. It's just a little bit worse in some areas. We're ranked 26th in points given up rather than 13th in 2016. Again, yards, we're about middle of the league. First downs, we're getting towards the bottom. Passing yards, the passing defense isn't all that good. The only thing about our defense right now that is really good, and even that's starting to lose some traction, is the rushing defense. We used to be a top 5 rush defense, almost had the best rush defense a couple of weeks ago. Now we're barely holding on to a top 10 ranking at this point. But still, that is immensely better than what we had in 2016. Everything else pretty much stacks up. We're terrible in the red zone, we don't get a lot of turnovers, and we're not really affecting the quarterback. We're not getting a lot of sacks. But that's my whole point. When you take a look at the defenses, there's a lot more similarities between these two units than what the offenses were. Because if you take a look at it, there's low sacks, there's a low amount of turnover percentage, there's a high scoring drive percentage rate, there's a high red zone percentage rate, and there's both bad defenses in terms of the passing game. There is a huge amount of similarities in comparison to the defenses of the Lions from 2016, 2023 than there is of the offenses from those differences, or from those two different times. So that's what I was able to find. Now, the main difference between, like I said, the defenses is the fact that the Lions' rush defense this year is immensely better. And on top of that, our penalties are a lot less in terms of, we've got less penalties overall. But again, we have to understand something here. The penalties themselves are going to be a little bit more subjective because penalties change every year. Whenever the owners go to their owners' meetings, they're going to add or subtract rules depending upon what they think worked or did not work. So again, it's kind of a little bit subjective. But again, the stats are the stats. I'm trying to stay as pretty much close to the factual data that I have. So that's how the teams did in terms of statistical production. And let's understand something here. To be fair, the Lions of 2023, they still have 4 more games left to play. So again, this conversation could change if I was to have it again in about a month. But again, I'm basing it off of where we are currently as a community, as a Lions fan community right now, to have this conversation. So, based on what I was able to present, the Lions' offense of 2023 is significantly better than that of 2016, which pretty much everybody's already figured that out. Everybody should have already known that. The defenses, however, are virtually the same. So again, there is some merit, at least so far, to this argument. But again, we have to go deeper. We have to do deeper analysis here to get a much more comprehensive picture here. I decided to then take a look at this. If you go back and you check the strength of schedules, check the strength of schedules for both 2016's Lions and the 2023 Lions. If you go back to 2016, the Lions had one of the weakest schedules going into that year. They were tied 27th in terms of weakest schedule. Their schedule, in terms of all their opponents and all their win totals added up together, was a .465. That was tied for 27th weakest. If you take a look at the Lions this year, it was a little bit better, but the ranking was substantially different. Their ranking this year was ranked 20th. That is a whole 7 spots difference. You're almost towards the middle of the league versus near the bottom of the league in terms of 2016. The win total percentage was almost dead even. It was .495. So again, you're talking about how this year the Lions' schedule was a little bit more of an even race and more towards the middle of the pack, whereas in 2016, it was almost towards the bottom. It was one of the weakest schedules that you could find in terms of the total NFL. Now, I decided to also even go further into this. I said, okay, here, let's compare something about the Lions' schedule from 2023 and 2016. Because again, we have to understand something here to kind of even further understand the complexity and also the strength of schedule. I decided to take a look at this. If you go back to 2016, the Lions, from their previous year in 2015 that they had played, they were only playing against 3 verified playoff opponents. That means there was only three teams on their schedule for 2016 that had been in the playoffs the previous year. Which, if you think about it, who are those 3 teams? I don't know who the third one was, but I know who 2 of them were: the Vikings and the Packers. So 4 out of the 5 games that they had, because they had that one standalone team, were against playoff teams. So that means 11 of their other games were against non-playoff qualifying teams in 2015. Then you take a look at that. On top of this, they only had 3 primetime games in 2016. And here's another big one. They did not play the defending Super Bowl champion from 2015 and 2016, because who was the Super Bowl defending champion in 2016? That was the Denver Broncos, because that was the last year that Peyton Manning went into the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl against the Carolina Panthers. Now, granted, that was more about the Broncos defense than Peyton Manning, but still, you get my point. If you, again, flip it on the reversal, in 2023, the Lions have played against 7 opponents that were in the playoffs in 2022. That's almost half of their schedule, because they play 17 games. They have played 8. They're going to play 8 games against qualified playoff opponents from 2022. That is a vast world difference. That is a huge world of difference. You're talking about a third of your schedule in 2016 almost, to almost half of your schedule in 2023. Huge world of difference. Then you take a look at the primetime game difference. Oh, we've also played 2 more primetime games. Actually, we're about to play our last 2 primetime games here in the next couple of weeks. So there's that as well. So that also is a difference between 2016 and 2023. The Lions have had more primetime games. And as I made mention at the very end, the Lions played the defending Super Bowl champion this year when they did not in 2016, because we played the Chiefs right out the gate and we won against them. So again, there's another vast difference in terms of schedule competition, in terms of playoff competition, and in terms of primetime games. And then I went even further here. I then decided to take a look at the end part of the schedules, because that's where all the contention is right now. The contention for Lions fans is thinking that the Lions are going to falter like they did in 2016. Okay, that's fine. Let's take a look at where the Lions were when they were at 9-4 in 2016 versus where they are right now at 9-4 in 2023. When you take a look at the last 3 games that the Lions had in 2016, 2 of those 3 games were on the road. Why am I bringing that up? The reason why I'm bringing it up is because in 2016, the Lions were not very good on the road that year. They were 3-5 on the road, pretty much meaning more likely than not, they were going to lose games on the road. And since 2 of our final 3 games were on the road, chances were not very good that the Lions were going to win those games. Now, I decided to take a look at the Lions this year. If you think about it, the Lions' final 4 games this year are split evenly between being at home and being on the road. We're home against the Vikings and we're home against the Broncos, and we're on the road against the Vikings and on the road against the Cowboys. So, that's an even split right there. But here's the difference between the Lions of 2023 and 2016. In 2023, we have been 5-2 on the road so far and 4-2 at home. So we are much better on both home turf and road turf than where we are in 2016. So again, you're talking about a vast difference in terms of a team from what happened in 2016 versus what's happening now in 2023. So that's my point so far. And again, you have to keep going further and further into this to get a much more clearer picture. Because again, here's something that I want to say right now. If you think about it, I said that the Lions have had or are about to have 8 total games where they play against playoff opponents, right? The Lions so far in 2023 have won 3 out of those 8 games that I'm talking about. And by the way, they have 3 more games where they're going to be playing against said playoff opponents. Because we have 2 games against the Vikings, who made the playoffs last year, and we also have a game against the Cowboys, who made a playoff game last year. So again, we still have 3 more games against playoff opponents that we have left this year. My bet is we're probably going to win at least 1 of those, if not 2 of those, because right now the Vikings just made a change at quarterback. They look like they're floundering. So for me, it's like, okay, here. I think that the Lions can probably beat the Vikings twice, depending upon what happens. But think about this. If you go back to 2016, like I said, the Lions had 5 games against qualified playoff opponents in 2016. They only beat 2 of those teams, and that was, again, against the Vikings twice. So again, if you think about it, the Lions from 2016 only won 40% of their games against playoff opponents. So far in 2023, the Lions have won 37.5% of their games against opponents that made it to the playoffs the previous year, and they've still got 3 more games where they're very likely to win at least 2 of those. So again, do I believe that the Lions are more of a mirror image, if you will, than what they were in 2016 versus this new image we're seeing in 2023? I'm just going to say this right now, just to be entirely honest. The jury is somewhat still out on this whole concept because is there some similarities? Yes, there are some similarities. But we have to understand something here. I apologize. My paper is just being absolutely stupid right now, and it is really irritating me to no end. So I'm just going to fold it in half so that way it'll stay up. So I apologize for that. Like I said, the jury is somewhat a little bit still out on whether or not the 2023 Lions are kind of being a deja vu moment of 2016. But based on current evidence that I have presented, I would say no. And again, here's the reason why. One, the Lions' offense in 2023 is substantially better overall than what it was in 2016. And even though while the defense is playing on a very similar level from 2016 and 2023, we have to understand something here. The Lions' schedule this year has been much more tough than what it was in 2016. And plus, on top of that, the Lions have played against much more quote-unquote quality opponents than what they played in 2016 and still have maintained that similar 9-4 record. I understand that the Lions lost against the Bears, and that is infuriating people because the Bears are not a good team. But we have to understand something here. As the saying goes, any given Sunday, sometimes a good team will lose against a bad team, and sometimes a bad team will win against a good team. It happens all the time. To kind of use that SOL mindset, everybody used to say that the Lions always lose against teams that they shouldn't lose, that they shouldn't lose against, and they would always beat teams that they shouldn't win against. That's my whole point. The same thing can happen in reverse to the Lions. That happened to us against the Bears on freaking Sunday this last week. My whole point is this. To think that the Lions are not going to win the NFC North, to think that the Lions are not going to win more games before the end of the year is stupid in my opinion. Let's keep some things in perspective before I wrap this up. Number one, the Giants just beat the freaking Packers on Monday Night Football. Very few people, except myself, thought that the Giants had a chance of doing that. I actually predicted that the Giants would do that when I talked about playoff scenarios. I'll put that episode at the top as well. But again, my whole point is this. The Lions still have a really good shot to win the NFC North. They still have a really good shot to go into the playoffs looking very strong. They just have to get some stuff rearranged, get themselves back in place, and we'll be ready to go. Now again, this game against the Broncos that's coming up, it is important. But again, I think it's winnable. I think the games against the Vikings are winnable. The only one I'm not going to say anything about is the Cowboys game, because as far as I'm concerned, that is a whole different kettle of fish. But having explained the evidence, having talked about this, I'm now going to cut the episode, and I'm going to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to do one of these three things. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past, if you got to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you've not had a chance to do so, again, I want to highly encourage y'all to please subscribe to the channel because it really helps me out, and I'm thankful for every subscription that I can get my hands on. But I also want to encourage y'all, please, after you subscribed, make sure you also turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure you turn on that notification icon, so that way as soon as I push something out, you guys always know about it. You guys can come right back in. We can keep having good conversation and discussions about our Lions and football in general. I also encourage y'all to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. Again, the more people we share it to, the more people that come in, the better the discussions, the more subscribers. It just helps everybody out, and it helps me out most of all, and I'm again ever so thankful for all the help I can receive. And with that being said, I just want to again say I hope you all enjoyed the content. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching. If I just gained your subscription, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And if I have not yet gained it, hopefully you'll come back and I'll get another chance to do so. But until the next time we meet, I just want to say God bless. And until the next time, I'll see you all in the next episode.